Let's bring you the news update for this time right now. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control has reported 203 new cases of COVID-19, taking the country's total number of confirmed cases to 169,532. Lagos recorded the highest number of new cases with 186 new infections, followed by Edo State, Oyo and River State with 4 cases each. The Federal Capital Territory recorded 3 cases, and Kwara State recorded 2 new cases. So far, 164,699 people have been discharged, while 2,127 people have died from COVID-19 complications. Meanwhile, the Presidential Steering Committee has put 6 states in the Federal Capital Territory on red alert. This includes Lagos, Oyo State, Rivers, Kaduna, Kano and Plateau State. A statement signed by the chairman of the committee, Boss Mustafa, said that the measure was adopted following the confirmation of Delta variant of COVID-19 and the rising number of infections and the hospitalizations across the country. While felicitating with the Muslim faithful on the occasion of the Eid al-Kabir celebration, the PSC urged all state governments and religious leaders to be mindful of the potential for wider spread of the virus during the large gatherings. The committee also warned all states of the Federation to heighten their state of preparedness and continue to enforce all protocols put in place, given the renowned greater ease of spread of the Delta variant. President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, has been giving reasons for the Upper Legislative Chamber's decision to attach conditions to the electronic transmission of election results because only 50% of the country's polling units could use technology to transmit results. He based the Senate's stance on information he said was provided by the Nigeria Communications Commission. The President of the Senate, who was speaking with journalists in Yobe State, said that the country has not reached the stage where it can deploy technology in every polling unit, but agreed that it will make the process credible. He added, quote, that we know the evils of not transmitting results electronically, but compare the evils of electronically transmitting just half of the electoral votes from Nigerians and say you have elected the president with 50% only, end of quote. Mr. Lawan said senators who voted against the immediate use of electronic transmission are not against the use of technology. The All Progressives Congress has released the approved schedule of activities and guidelines for the conduct of the party's nationwide ward congresses scheduled for Saturday, July 31st, 2021. In a statement signed by the National Secretary of the APC, Caretaker Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee, Senator John Akpanudehe, purchase of nomination forms for ward, local government, area councils and state congresses will take place from 19th July to 28th August 2021. Screening of aspirants for the ward party positions is scheduled for the 29th to 30th of July 2021. Ward congresses will then hold on the 31st of July 2021. Appeals arising from ward congresses will hold August 2nd to 7th of August. With the Eid al-Kabir celebration just a day away, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Al-Khali Baba, has assured the nation of sustained efforts by the force in improving public safety and security across the country. He gave the assurance while charging commissioners of police in all the states of the Federation and the FCT to ensure a secure, peaceful and incident-free celebration. The IGP, while congratulating the Muslim faithful in the country, reiterated that the force would continue to improve on the recent gains achieved in stabilizing security and order in parts of the country. Let's get into our discussion now. Flooding has become a perennial challenge, and many states have already started feeling the impact. Many Lagosians are still reeling from the effect of heavy rainfall which submerged parts of the state last Friday. The 2021 annual flood outlook predicts that communities in 28 states are at risk of flooding and that their severity would depend on the availability and adequacy of drainage systems and adherence to urban planning regulations. So let's talk about this. Director of Programs, Corporate Accountability and Public Participation, Africa, Philip Jakbo, joins me now on Zoom. Philip, good morning. It's good to have you join me now.
Morning. It's a pleasure being here.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Now, the outlook for the flood outlook seemed to, it came out earlier in the year, and it's been coming out like that every year when the projections come to say, okay, this year there's going to be likely this and likely that. But when it comes to preparation and how to avert flooding and the impact, that hasn't changed at all. What are we not getting right?
Well, you've spoken my introductory line, which is that, in fact, from 2012, I think NIMET has been getting it right in terms of the early warning systems. It has been coming. They've never let Nigerians down in that regard. But unfortunately, our problem is the state level response. The flooding that we had in Lagos last week, Wednesday and Friday particularly, exposed the fact that the states, just like other states, has not been proactive in terms of response to the NIMET warnings. We had enough time. I think NIMET gave that warning February, March, so we had enough time to prepare. But unfortunately, the states, Lagos, like other states, did not put in place proactive measures to ensure that we're ready this year. It has been the same cycle year in, year out since 2012 when the flooding occasioned by climate change increased.
All right. Let me ask basically, how aware are people when it comes to what to do about this advisory that comes out every year?
Well, I think that is the responsibility of the state governments. That's the responsibility of the National Orientation Agency. I don't think much has been done in terms of educating people on waste management, because like what we saw in Lagos last week is a result of blocked drains, is a result of the canals that have not been cleared, and the waste that you have in all these canals and these drains, of course, they come from people. So we cannot say the laws are not there, but to a large extent, the enforcement of the law, sanctions for those who block drainages, those things, we have not been seeing much of it. And then government itself is indicted, because it's not only the drains, it's not only the canals, you also have people building on floodplains. So the question you ask yourself is, who gives them permits? And if they get permits to build, then the blame goes back to government. So it's a whole gamut, but the government is responsible. So we have land reclamation exercises going on, the field exercises that are blocking water channels. You have building on floodplains. You have poorly built drains. You have bad roads, because it is not just the drains, even the roads. We saw what happened in Victoria Island and the Lekki axis yesterday. So it's a whole gamut of things that government is supposed to do and they are not doing. It's unfortunate, because even with what is happening, you see some people comparing what is happening here with Germany, Belgium, but it is not the same thing. The floods in Germany, for instance, are record floods. It has not happened like that in 60 years. So it's clearly climate change. You can blame it on climate change. But what is happening here is not climate change. It's just the political will of government to do the right thing. And that has not happened for years.
All right. Now, the Minister of Water Resources is saying that from the federal government's perspective, they are trying to control water flows by ensuring that they build dams and artificial lakes and things like that. How is that helping? How would that ameliorate the situation or prepare for the floods?
Well, we always hear of government wanting to, government will, government plans to. These languages, we have been hearing them for years. we want real action. We don't want to trust what we are hearing from the federal government level anymore, because these floods, like I said, has been happening. The worst floods we had was 2012, when about 25 or so states were flooded. And at that time, I remember clearly, like most Nigerians do, the blame was the opening of the dams in Cameroon and other places because of excess rains. And in 1979, when the dam, the Lagdo Dam, for instance, was constructed, Nigeria was supposed to build buffer dams down the line. But unfortunately, those buffer dams have not been built, and that's why you're having this flooding. So it's not enough to tell us that the federal government is planning to. We want to see it happen, and that is not what is not happening. We hear it year in, year out, and we are only lucky. We're only lucky as a people, despite the kind of floods we have. We're only lucky if we have the kind of things that we are seeing in other parts of the world. I'm sure we will have taken this thing serious. We are at the mercy of the elements now because government is not doing what they are supposed to.
All right, if we have to dig into the practicals of what should be done, what dimension, when we talk about these measures, what are they really, if we have to go there?
From their own language, you hear what is supposed to be done. Now, at the national level flooding, we've over time we've heard that we need to build buffer dams. That has to be done. There has to be mass awareness on the impact of climate change, and which, of course, will give room for more unusual rains, heavy rains. But it's not only rains. You're also going to have dry spells also. So climate change is not only about rains. In some parts of Canada today, it's serious heat that they are contending with that has killed over 200 people. So it's education about climate change, waste management, proactive measures like the building of the dams, and state-level activities in synergy with the federal level. NEMA, the National Emergency Management Agency, should be working with the state emergency management agencies for responses, planning. So it's not just talking, because what we see now is government agencies are not working in synergy, and they should work in synergy to ensure that the federal government policies in relation to climate change and addressing the perennial issue of flooding are in sync with that of the states. That is not happening.
All right, now everyone is grappling with the issues of COVID-19 right now, and with the floods coming in, there are fears that it could make things even worse. How would this compound that situation, really?
Well, most people in flood-prone areas will move, and you cannot stop them from moving. If you saw the kind of disasters that happened and has been happening in the Lekki axis, in Lagos, Victoria Island, you will not tell anybody to just sit and watch floods ravage them or ravage their homes and not move. They're likely to move. We've cited this some months ago when the annual hurricane season started in US and other parts of the United States. The government built even COVID-19 compliant, makeshift for people who are going to leave areas where you have these floods coming. But we don't have those kind of plans. In fact, with the floods, people are on their own. If you see the videos that have been trending in the last 3 or 4 days of the flooding incident, hundreds of cars, submerged. Those cars are useless. Their engines are gone. Everybody is on their own. That is the summary of this whole thing. Everybody is on their own. If you read in the papers, the German government, with what is happening in Germany, voted 300 million euros to address challenges, and it also includes plan to ensure that when people are moving or when people are being catered for, it addresses the issue of the COVID-19 spread. But we don't have these kind of things here. We don't have those plans. The primary simple things that we should do, which involves, for instance, clearing of the drains regularly, they are not done. So we are only a people who respond to the issues and not acting proactively, and it is unfortunate.
All right. Now, from what government officials have been saying, Nigeria doesn't have all the funds right now. Would you recommend maybe, because the Senate President has said we have no choice but to borrow right now. Nigeria doesn't have the funds. Would that apply? Should that apply to the issue of also borrowing to take care of some of these issues around flooding?
Well, borrowing is a big issue. You want to borrow to build the dams. You want to borrow to clear the drains. You want to borrow to clear the canals. These are excuses that are not tenable. That is not the simple clearing of drains that we are talking about. These things are, will you have to borrow money to do that? These are very, very simple things. Lagos, for instance, we know is below sea level. There are just some simple things we need to do. If these drains have been cleared, the canals have been opened before these rains started, I'm not sure we'll have witnessed what we witnessed last week. And the rains are just coming, so it's not ending with what happened last week. We are going to have more rains. It's just 4 or 5 hours rain that we had the shutdown of the whole state. Now imagine if you had 12 hours. And it's even beyond, flooding issue. It's also a security issue. When a whole state can shut down because of rain, then what else cannot happen? So we are talking about government being proactive. You don't need to borrow money to do these simple things that all of us can see. Clearing of the drains does not require borrowing of funds. Maybe building of dams, maybe. But to tell us that you need funds from where? Are we going to borrow money to do everything? We don't have money to even do elections. We don't have money. I don't think it begs the issue. What we need is for government to do what they are supposed to do, and what they are supposed to do is being proactive. These floods have been happening since 2012. We have no option but to do the right thing, or else we'll all be victims of this situation.
Mm-hmm. All right. There has been talk about the issue of food security and all of that. This flooding that is ravaging parts of, well, we're feeling the impact already. What could be the implications around food security and agriculture going forward if it is not mitigated?
Well, we have to pray for 2022 because that's what we are good in doing, praying. Already you have the situation where the security crisis, especially in the eastern parts of the country, has affected farming. A lot of farmers have had to flee from their farms. Now, if you now had flooding to it, it means we have a bleak, outlook in the agricultural sector for next year. And that's why we have to do what we have to do, and readily and immediately. Government has to hit the ground running. In Lagos, for instance, it won't take anything for the government to declare a state of emergency and start opening up the channels, water channels, the canals that have been blocked. A state of emergency should be declared. And even at the national level, the same thing, so that we address this flooding issue once and for all. So it is not promising us that something will be done. We've been having this cycle year in, year out, and it is the same thing. So proactive measures should be taken. That is what Nigerians want.
All right. On the part of the individual who feels the impact the most when these things come, what should individuals who live in flood-prone areas, what practical things should they be doing right now?
Well, it is evident that everyone is on his own. So if I were to advise people who live in those flood-prone areas, my advice will actually be that, they move, because that's the safest thing to do. And that's the same language that government is putting out there, that they should evacuate. But we expect that government saying that should actually, put in place some form of, palliatives to assist this kind of people, because it is not just me and you that will live in those kind of places because we are educated, but you have a lot of people who, except those who build on floodplains, who of course have the means, and then they build on floodplains. That is walking into a trap on its own. But for the ordinary people, there should be, some form of assistance. Even at that, for states across the federation, you don't even hear, for instance, that they are building, shelters where, if these people are people who live along those coastal areas, every year you have this kind of floods, they move to those high grounds and stay for some time, and then when it's past, they can come back. These are some of the things, like I mentioned some while ago when we had this kind of conversation. In the US, you have hotels who are making arrangements for people to move in, and when the hurricane season is past, they can go back to their places. But I don't think any state in this country is actually making those kind of plans. When the flooding in 2012 happened in Lokoja, for instance, we had families, sheltering in a primary school, and that primary school had over 200 families with 2 toilets. So you have a situation whereby even women and people who have some form of disabilities have to crawl to the toilet and use the toilet. So you are quite certain that most people are going to leave those sites again, with the various diseases. So we should build shelters. Since we are not ready to do the right thing, and we just want to be talking year in, year out, why not build these shelters so that when it's this period of the year, people move there, and so you don't have human disasters. So these are the kind of things I think we should be looking at. But unfortunately, like I said, we talk, but we don't walk the talk. Next year, it's most likely we're going to be saying the same thing, and it's unfortunate.
All right. I just hope that this has to change somehow. Now, some have argued that due to climate change, that even if drainages are desilted and all the water hyacinths are removed and things like that, that it will not stop the issue of flood. What do you say to this?
Building drainages and things like that will definitely ameliorate the impact, lessen the impact. Now, if you look at Lagos, for instance, once you have this kind of rains, very, very heavy rains, and you have massive flooding, go back there in the next 6 or 7 hours, most of the waters will have receded. So it means if we had those kind of structures in place, water will actually find its level. Water will actually move. So when we cited the instance of Germany, for instance, they have plans, but the impact of climate change was so mammoth that about 200 people have died that speak today. But these are countries that have plans. So imagine if they didn't have any plan. So we should also plan so that even if we suffer some of these impacts of climate change, it will not be as massive as what we've seen. You need to see the pictures and videos on social media. A lot of people have lost property, cars submerged, and it's incredible. And unfortunately, these people will have to bear the cost on their own. Unlike the kind of things we are hearing, like in the case of Germany I mentioned, about 300 million euros has been allocated for people who are going to suffer the impacts of what is happening there already. So that is a government that is concerned. But here, you are on your own. Those people are going to end up either repairing those cars on their own or selling it. Those who have lost property, and some people even lost lives. There were cases of children that were washed away. How can you replace, a child? So it's unfortunate that we have to be talking about this year in, year out. Nigerians are under, heavy burden already. And then we of course we have the climate, the COVID crisis, and then you have people who will be forced to move. You also have the agriculture angle, the impact that this is going to have on agriculture. Like I said earlier on, we have to pray for 2022 because it's likely there's going to be hunger in the land because of the combination of all these things happening.
All right. Philip Jakbo, thank you so much for talking to us. You're the Director of Programs, Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa. Thank you very much for talking to us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.
Okay.